Alright, what's up everybody, Shinmoki here, and today I'm just doing another quick album collection update. Of course, I collect CDs here, and you may ask, what's the point of this? It's just like an off-the-cuff, fun little thing, so I basically just give my thoughts on the albums, and I'm essentially giving you music recommendations, telling you what the music is like, and just, obviously I recommend all these albums, I own them all, so, obviously I recommend them, so you can deliberate whether or not you'd like to give them a listen, Just a fun little side venture. So we start off, of course, with Danny Brown's Triple X. I actually really like this it's a very thin little thing here. At first I was like, oh my god, did they just send me a piece of paper? But I actually kind of like it. I don't know. Just the sort of minimalist way this works. It just looks good. It works, It's functional. And, it makes sense. This was Danny's first studio release, technically. I know it started as a mixtape and then later on it got released. But, yeah, if you guys don't know what this is, it's basically Danny's breakout album. A lot of crazy lyrics on this thing. There's just tons of ones that I would like to quote, but it would sound ridiculous coming out of my mouth, so I won't. But there's also a lot of introspective and thought-provoking things on this album too. It's sort of like on Old. There's like a first half and a second half. So the first half is like just absolutely balls to the wall, crazy, braggadocious, and with ludicrous and hilarious lines over and over. It's like basically him being high and then coming off his high, talking about the troubles in his life, and the party lifestyle leading to a person's demise, essentially. So, a very interesting album with tons of great quotes. It is a little long-winded for what it is, but it's still great. You can't fault it. One that people will fault. Oh my God, that looks terrible, the way it's reflecting. Oh, and it's got, like, finger marks all over it. I guess it makes sense, but yeah, if you can't tell, this is Yeezus from Kanye West. Probably his most controversial album to date. Kanye was never, like, a PG artist. Well, I guess on 808s and Heartbreak he was. But, like, he was never, like, a PG artist, but, Yeezus really sounded a lot more... Sorry, I don't want to spoil too much there. But Yeezus sounded a lot more angry, and it sounded a lot less... it was definitely his least Christian album, that's for sure. Of course, with his controversial song, I Am a God. And, this was actually my first Kanye West album, just because I heard so many mixed things about it. I was like, I kind of want to hop in and see what's what. And I actually really enjoyed it. But the more I listened to Kanye's music, the more I realized why this album sort of failed. Because it is just so angry, and a lot of the lyrics are kind of offensive for no reason. Like how on site, get the spit shaking like Parkinson's. And just, he never really was that angry sounding. He didn't go to those places in his lyrics to get his point across. And this album doesn't say too much more than what My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was saying, or some of the more woke stuff like on, say, Late Registration. So he was just saying it in a much angrier ways and with a very abrasive sound. And I can see why it flopped, but I do still enjoy it. Well, not really flopped. I think it still sold just fine. But it was his lowest rated album for a very long time. Then Jesus is King came along, but we'll talk about that another day. Let's move on to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Legendary album by this point. And it seems like the binding just doesn't... Like, it wasn't measured out properly. It doesn't really... okay, well, that's unfortunate. But anyways, you guys know My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. This is the one with Power, So Appalled, Monster. There's really fantastic songs. Devil in a New Dress, too, I really enjoy. Which is tons and tons of notable artists. And you guys all know this album. All the Lights as well, of course, with Rihanna. Just fantastic. It really was a landmark album. It just had so many great sounds, so many great lyrics on it, and it was just fantastic, and everybody loved it, except for one guy who has a lack of hair, looks a bit like a melon. He didn't exactly love it, and the more I listen to this album, the more I see those flaws, but still, you can't fault the impact that this album had. I mean, it's just absolutely legendary, and you can put any song on here. It is a little long-winded, but you can put any song on here and just enjoy what you're listening to, Some more than others, but that's to be expected. So let's move on to the other good Mudvayne album, Lost and Found. So Mudvayne has actually a pretty sizable discography, but a lot of their music really just sounds a bit generic. It just sort of sounds like generic metal. And LD50, being as unhinged as it was and as ridiculous as it was, sort of broke that mold, I felt. I felt like, especially, particularly in the lyrics, I think that album stood out a little bit more to me. You'll see in my first collection roundup, I talked about that album a little bit. And then with this one, it does kind of just sound like mid-2000s metal, but there are a few good songs on here. This one has Fallen to Sleep, Happy, and Rain, Sun, Gone. Really decent songs. It's not the best album in the world, but I do still enjoy it, so just figured I may as well add it to the collection. Mudvayne, obviously not the biggest band out there, but I do still respect them as artists, so I wanted to get their other album that I enjoyed. And then Run the Jewels, who you will see more in the future. The color looks weird here. It's definitely the correct color in person, but it looks really pink here for some reason. Or it looks almost salmon on the video. That's interesting. But Run the Jewels 4 obviously was released early in light of the Black Lives Matter movement having a resurgence in 2020. Just an excellent album through and through. Again, with their trademark humor and their trademark, what's the word I don't want to use? I guess I could say politics, but no, their sort of style of activism on here, of course, in songs like Walking in the Snow. But then, of course, having just fun, egocentric, I guess? Is that... I don't know words, guys, I'm sorry. But, songs like Holy Cow and La Fuck as well. Songs that are just fun bangers, and then other ones that, really get you thinking. Like the aforementioned Walking in the Snow. So, this is probably my favorite of theirs. Run the Jewels 2 comes very close, though. Run the Jewels 2 is fantastic, and I'll be definitely getting that one soon. And this one, of course, the classic Purple Rain by Prince and the Revolution. I mean, what can be said about this album that hasn't already been said? Pretty much nothing. It's just a wonderful listen through and through. The instrumentals are just really funky and different sounding, and Prince just gives us all every single track. Of course, Darling Nikki, When Doves Cry, Let's Get Crazy, like, just hit after hit after hit, and it's all just a lot of fun to listen to, and just you feel the emotion in Prince's voice and the instrumentation. Really just, it's just so solid, There's no part of the album where I really feel like it could do without this. Like, every idea that they had was a good one, essentially. Well, everything that landed on the album, I should say. I mean, I'm sure you guys have already heard, if not the whole thing, most of the songs from it. Now, here's one that, this album honestly kind of scares me. It's, it sounds really melodramatic. Of course, I always reference him, I'm sorry. But the needle drop when he says this album's scary. A few other critics have said it's scary as well. Really no other album has scared me quite like this album, with just its sounds, its vocal performances, its lyrics. The thing that really blows me away about this album is just the way the lyrics are. They're not grotesque, they're not melodramatic, they are very straightforward, but they're still just soul-crushing, just in the context. The Flammable Man is quickly becoming one of my favorite songs of all time, and it's just, it feels like you're having a panic attack. It's been said before about this album, but it really does feel that way, and it's just something I think everyone should try and listen to this album through and through, and just pretty much once I got used to the lead singer's vocals, because they are a little different, but once I got used to his vocals, I was just completely entrenched, and I just love everything about this album, and I think it's pretty much perfect, and gets you thinking too, so that's always a plus. And then another one to get you thinking a little bit, Rage Against the Machine with Evil Empire. Probably not going to get any other Rage Against the Machine albums. I thought Battle of Los Angeles and, oh my god, it begins with an R. What was their fourth album? I don't think I even listened to it all the way through. I felt like the next two albums kind of were just saying the same things that this and the first album said, but just didn't feel quite as raw. I felt, and of course, Evil Empire's one with Bulls on Parade, Vietnam, People of the Sun, and it's just another very enjoyable Rage Against the Machine album. Although I do feel like the bands started to sound the same after a little while, you know. And of course, their message is what's really important, and it is important to keep it out there. But it's also important to keep your music fresh. And after Evil Empire, I felt like they just kind of started sounding the same. Not necessarily that that's a bad thing. It's obviously a good band, but I mean they broke up not too long after, so kind of speaks for itself. Of course, that their sound isn't the only factor, but you guys know what I mean. And another scary album, David Bowie's Blackstar, with a stamp that I tried desperately to remove, withdrawn by CCPL, somewhere in Ohio, some public library. But yeah, you can see it's a little damaged here, unfortunately. Really not a very high quality version of the album. I'll probably buy a new version of it instead later on. But yeah, as I said, another very scary album. David Bowie just knowing his death is coming and embracing that wholly in an artistic way. Especially like on the title track, like on Lazarus, like on I Can't Give Everything Away. And his vocal performances through and through were just excellent. I really enjoyed his vocal performances and his, and the instrumentation as well, which I know wasn't just him. But the instrumentation as well is just really freaky sounding. It's like, I know he actually took inspiration from Death Grips, which I thought was amazing. And maybe Death Grips took inspiration from him because of what I'm about to say. It sounds a little like Death Grips' Year of the Snitch on here, with how just sort of freaky and wonky some of the instrumentation sounds. Some of it's totally competent, like through and through just sounds like, oh, this is really solid, sort of almost like a jazz rock sound. But then other parts of it are just completely outlandish and freaky. I said that about 30 times, I'm sorry, but it is a really excellent album. Whatever you think of David Bowie, I do think you should give this album a listen. It genuinely does, like, whenever I listen to it, I'm just like, holy shit, dude, I don't want to get old and die. That sounds scary. Knowing your death is coming seems kind of terrifying, and the album puts it in a really interesting way. And yeah, this was pretty damaged. I'm thinking it was during shipping, because I mentioned this to them, you know, was it this cracked? And they said, no, there was a small crack, which is probably like this here. And then this may have happened during shipping, unfortunately. But the booklet was fine, the disc was fine, so that's okay. But To Pimp a Butterfly from Kendrick Lamar, absolutely wonderful album. Introspective of not only himself, but also being an African American. You know, what does that mean? What is their place? So on and so forth. It's just a really interesting look at that. And, you know, plucking out individual tracks like I'm trying to put on a playlist or something, it doesn't work all that well. But then you listen to the album through, and it all just makes sense. And it's just such an excellent experience. And songs like You, King Kunta, I mean, they do work on their own, but then when you put them in the context of the album, and you have that beautiful sandwich between, you know, Wesley's Theory and Mortal Man, whew, it really blew my hair back. I was just so pleased with this album. I was so glad it lived up to the hype, and it in a way does make me sad that, you know, an album like this exists, because it's a great piece of art, don't get me wrong, but, you know, there's just a lot of truths in this album that, you wish wouldn't be. But moving on to something less depressing, in the final album I'm talking about today, Tech Nine All Sixes and Sevens. I was actually very happy with this little booklet here. Of course, this is Tech Nine's 2011 effort, and Tech Nine, he's a very staunch businessman, and you have to respect the hustle because he puts out like 30 songs in an album. Okay, it's probably because he gets more money if you're streaming the album, and if you just leave the album on, he's going to be getting more money. And so probably every song idea that he has, he probably is just going to push, even if it doesn't end up sounding that good. We especially saw that with The Storm, which was like 35 tracks on that album. But you do have to respect the hustle, and you can tell that he does care about his music. Well, okay, he does. He has a passion for music, even if he's maybe a little too ambitious sometimes, trying to implement country and rock into his super fast rhyming. It doesn't always work, but you do have to respect that Tech Nine, it does seem like he cares, and this booklet is really nice. Honestly, it looks really pretty. I'm very happy with that. And all sixes and sevens. This is He's a Mental Giant, Worldwide Choppers, Am I a Psycho, which is a weird ass song, and the hilarious song with Lil Wayne, Fuck Food, which is just, it's gross, but it is also obviously supposed to just be funny. So that is my, I probably don't want to squish Triple X tiny ass booklet. But yeah, that is my album roundup for the 15th of January. And I would like to thank you guys for watching. And please check out any of these albums if they sound appealing to you. Thank you.